Այսօր մեր հեռուստահանդեսի հյուրերն են Լույս հիմնադրամի գործադիր տնօրենուհի Ժակլին Կարասլանյանը եւ հիմնադրամի 3 թոշակառուները, որոնք իրենց ուսումը ստանում են Նյու Յորքի Կոլումբիա համալսարանում.
I have to say it's wonderful to be in this wonderful company. Jacqueline, it's great to see you again. I believe you and I had a very interesting conversation a few years back.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to see you again in this wonderful institution that we call Columbia University. And touch base, see where things are with Luis Foundation. And this time we have guests among us.
Yes.
These beautiful young Armenians that are all recipients of a grant from the organization, representing different fields, theater, from what I understand, film and medicine. Welcome, everyone. Jacqueline, I want to begin with you. Prior to this interview, you and I were having a conversation in the hallway, and you said something that struck me as interesting. You said research matters. Can you explain to me what you meant?
What I meant is research matters because that's what distinguishes top universities from the rest of the universities, which means not only having access to best education, but they are invited always to test their newly acquired knowledge into labs, to test their ideas, to test their impact in the world, and reflect on it and come back and think about it again. So these universities that are very focused on the research aspect, it means that they are engaging all of our scholars to be very creative, and also to give them the habit and the ease to go from an idea to express it and share it with their surrounding, so to go from an idea to an action. And when we think of why Armenia invested so much into education and supporting scholars, now 517 of them, another 100 will join us this year. Why? Because these top universities are really equipping them not only with best knowledge, but with the best practice on how to go from this knowledge into reality and have really be an agent of change, have an impact and make a difference. And by talking to each of them, you will see how this happens. Now, here we have at Columbia in the arts and also medicine, but I want you to keep in mind that we have all research aspects, all expertise, from engineers to social sciences to architects, to law experts. We have all the expertise that is covered by our young Armenian scholars at top universities. And not only they're bringing best knowledge from these centers of excellence, but they're also passing it on to their peers in Armenia. They also teach in Armenia. So we really wish to see this habit of always having learning and action, learning and research, really be more embraced everywhere in the world and of course in Armenia.
And in a few words, Jacqueline, tell me why you're here. What kind of work you've been involved with on this latest trip?
Well, I work closely with our scholars. We prepare the agenda for the upcoming summer months where we're going to be together and how we're going to see their knowledge impact Armenia in different fields. But also I was here to represent the work that Armenia is doing, bridging the passage from academic life to real life accomplishment right here at Pratt Institute, which is the top design school in the United States. And also very much focusing on why research matters, along with very interesting panelists and a moderator from Google who's in charge of content for Google. And so I was very honored to share our experience with our really exceptional scholars on an international stage where it shows that what counts today is not so much how big your country is, but how creative your country is.
Arthur, I'm sure you know that you are working in a field that Armenia had incredible history with. Right? Armenian theater was and continues to be world known. We obviously gave to the world some of the most famous directors. And now the young generation, the baton is in your hands. And you're a recipient of a grant to work in a theater, which is an incredible thing in its own right. So tell us a little bit about you, about your background in Armenia. And then we'll talk a little bit about your current project. Go ahead.
So I was born in Echmiadzin, and afterwards I've been, I didn't really make a choice to go to the Institute of Theater and Cinematography, but the choice was kind of made somehow, somewhere, and I didn't know about that. And it's not that it's my parents who did it, because they had nothing to do with arts. So when I was like 15, 16, I got to the Institute of Theater. And when I was 17, 18, I got an internship offer from Paris, and I left for Paris. This is where my international educational journey started. And then I went to Sorbonne University, and I did more of a research. This is what we were talking, more of a research-based education, where I was reading more theoretically and learning about theater and music. And afterwards, I wrote my thesis, which helped me to write my thoughts concisely on a page and to be able to express myself more clearly. And that helped me to be able to start the next step, which is the practical step. And then I applied to Columbia University, and I was lucky to be one of the 6 directors to get to the theater directing program. And then thanks to Lewis Foundation, I got the possibility of joining the program here. And what is so appreciated by me in this program is that I'm first taught by Anne Bogart, who is a legendary viewpoints technique inventor. And then the second is that you're not here for theory, you're here for practical job. So this is your material, these are your actors, these are your studios, and you are given this amount of time to work and to make a product. And that is being critiqued by your supervisors and advisors afterwards. So you are basically learning on your experience, on your failures, on your laboratory-based work that you are doing at Columbia University, which was quite different than what I learned at Sorbonne and at Institute of Theater and Cinematography in Armenia, where you have a certain stereotype and category what you are supposed to be in your professional world, while here at Columbia University, you are given the possibility to be who you are. And so much the liberty of being to express your artistry inside you, and believing in yourself, trusting yourself, and moving forward, and being most productive with the people that you're collaborating with. And I have to say that Columbia University has all these concentrations of dramaturgy, playwrights, actors, producers, stage managers, who are all working together, and thus you discover all your collaborators that you want to pursue working with them afterwards. Such as right now, I'm graduating from Columbia University in May. My commencement is in May. And I already have producers, stage managers, actors that I want to work with, and we keep working together. And the last project we did at Lenfest Center of Columbia University, which is the new cultural center, we did this project, Broken April, which was based on a novel by Ismail Kadare, but it was also very much adapted through the history of mine as an Armenian. What is my experience as an Armenian? What are my intentions as an Armenian? And what I want to change and to be as an Armenian today. And the first time I joined the cultural task force of Artsakh, and I left for Artsakh, and I was very proud of the work we did there, because you think that the young generation is not so devoted to the work and art that they want to produce, but then you find all these people and you bring them together, and then together they do magic.
And what kind of work you did in Artsakh?
We did The Persians by Aeschylus, and it was very much talking about diplomacy in between the enemies, and I thought that was very much needed in that part of the world where we are struggling in between what is enemy and what is the culture of hatred.
So this is to your point of coming back to Armenia and bringing what they learn And introducing people to something that they maybe have not been introduced before.
Yes, and also sharing their passion. I think you all hear it in Arthur's voice, but it's very much present in every Louis scholar and all across. And passion is contagious. And we need to love what we do and to share it with people in Armenia who are so
hungry for it.
So hungry for it, and also they have so much to say. And their participation is always very active and very creative as well.
Arthur, tell me briefly about this latest, is this your thesis work that's coming out? Jacqueline was mentioning it's going to be shown at Lincoln Center, am I correct?
I was hired by Juilliard Lincoln Center last year as an opera directing fellow, and that gave me a possibility to alternate with Columbia University third year at Juilliard, which became a true challenging experience for me because I had to carry my program at Columbia, but at the same time work full-time at Juilliard. And I was assigned in my contract to be assistant director on 2 main stage productions of Juilliard, and one with Metropolitan Opera and Juilliard, which was a co-production of Verdi concert, with top singers of Lindemann program of Metropolitan Opera, singers who are represented all over in the world, like world-class singers. And it gave me a possibility to learn what opera directing is, to get familiar with it very well, and to understand that we have jewels in Armenia in opera pieces, starting from Anush to Karine of Chokhajian, and how we can present those works of art in the world and make it more appreciated by the international audience. And right now I am thinking with Konstantin Orbelian, who is the artistic director of Armenian Opera and Ballet. I am trying to understand how I could join the amazing job that he has already started there and just be part of the development of new Armenian. And I am thinking like, I have this new project thinking like, what if I start a new project which would be new contemporary Armenian composers working with librettists in Armenia and starting new Armenian contemporary opera, original works, and how it would inspire and excite the new composers and bring them to the surface so we can see them, because we have many talents, and I've been working with a couple of composers in Armenia. They are just like astonishing, but what they do, they really don't express themselves as they would be able to do if they were given the platform to do it. So I am right now thinking that I would probably start that project after the experience at Juilliard and at Columbia, which gave me this real base of stepping on, pushing myself, and helping other people to come after me.
Oksana, you are probably in one of the most difficult fields of art. I always wonder why people choose to do that to themselves.
That's a sickness.
It's a sickness indeed, but a good one. And if we do have a rather developed film environment in Armenia, theater environment in Armenia, film definitely needs work.
Absolutely.
And the reasons are many. Obviously, it's a collective process. It's an expensive process. It requires education and so forth. So tell me a little bit about your work. Tell me a little bit about how did you get into filmmaking. And then after that, I want to ask you about your experiences being in Columbia and being recipient of this amazing grant.
I was born and raised in Armenia. I lived there until I was about 22. And prior to coming here and pursuing my degree in filmmaking, I was a journalist. I pursued a degree in journalism, and I worked as a journalist for a couple of years, which gave me a lot of experience and a lot of things to talk about. But then I was like, I can't do this anymore because it's not me, and I have to tell the stories that I want to tell. And I understood that film is the most suitable profession for me, because theater has, as liberating as it is, it has limitations. It's very intense, but it has limitations in terms of time and space. But with film, you can go crazy. You can do whatever you want with film, and it's preserved in the time that you're doing it. So I really am fascinated by this aspect of filmmaking and the freedom that it gives you.
Talk a little bit about your influences. Are there any Armenian filmmakers that influence you? Talk about your work a little bit, and then make a connection with, because art is a dynamic process.
Of course.
And where you come from plays a big role in what you're trying to say. Make that connection for me.
Absolutely. It's very important where you come from, because my biggest influence is my country, is my home. And whatever stories I want to tell, it's somehow connected one way or another with Armenia. Even if it's a film set in New York, it tells the story of an Armenian, or it has such a strong Armenian thing in it that you can't work around it. And I'm not even trying to, because there are so many filmmakers in New York. Nobody needs another pretend New Yorker. I've always been interested in Armenian stories, and I always wanted to tell stories of my country. And that's what since my first year at Columbia, that's what I've been trying to do. And this past year, I shot my first film in Armenia, and we shot in Gargar, where we actually did a loose project. We have many projects in Gargar. But we shot in the village, and the community there is amazing. If not for those people, I would not be able to make that film. One of the biggest influences on me as a filmmaker is Sergei Parajanov. Of course, I'm trying to shake it off a little bit, but still, it's a big influence since I was a child. I'm very fond of Armenian filmmakers like Frunze Dovlatyan and, of course, Henrik Malyan. So. I shot my film in Armenia, and it is a little bit bordering experimental piece, and although it's very much rooted in reality, because Columbia influence is very strong, and they're teaching us core 3-act structure, screenwriting, and a sort of 3-act structure storytelling, and that is very strong. But at the same time, I'm trying to stay true to myself and direct something that I personally am very interested in, which is this sort of world in between dream and reality, which has a lot of symbols and a lot of expressionism. Let me just add one thing, that this past year I was in Armenia, and I was talking to the National Cinema Center, and I was trying to see if there's any way that I can collaborate, if they're interested in what, in my film. And however excited they were not able to help me in any way. First of all, they tried to change my film a lot and sort of adjust it to whatever in their mind Armenian audience wants to hear and make it commercial. But why am I telling this? It's not like I'm bitter about it. I'm just telling this because. That support we need to support not only or not the commercial film.
That's what Jacqueline was referring to in the beginning of our conversation, is that the knowledge that you guys are acquiring here, which is top of the line knowledge, right? You are associating with some of the best professionals of the world. You have an opportunity to express yourself freely, which is really a big privilege. What's interesting is that we not only have representatives of art here, but we have a representative from medicine. And that's actually something that through this program, I've actually had an opportunity to speak to a lot of medics who go to Armenia from here. And there are many, many, many problems that needs to be solved, particularly in rural Armenia. While there are a few hospitals that are approaching a world standard in Yerevan, there is some serious issues that needs to be addressed when you have a person who lives in a rural area has to travel 3 hours, 4 hours to come to Yerevan for a basic treatment. And Jacqueline, when we were having a conversation, said that you in fact have worked in rural areas and have a first-hand experience. Talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about yourself, and and talk a little bit about what this grant meant to you. What kind of opportunity did it give to you?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Iran, so basically I'm Spurkahai in some sense, and I also lived in Armenia for a very long time, so I'm also Armenian in other sense. I went to Armenia in 2003, and I got admitted in Yerevan State Medical University until 2010 when I graduated as a doctor, clinical doctor. But at the last years when I was studying, I figured out that I do not have to actually treat patients. I do not have to actually work on the clinical side of medicine to make changes. I wanted to make a bigger changes. So that's why I got into American University of Armenia at that time, and I got my master's in public health, which gave me a broad overview of how health system works in general, how other things influence health, what causes diseases, what prevents diseases. And after that, I had a very good experience in different sectors in Armenia. I've worked in government, I've worked in different NGOs, and I worked in different places in Armenia, implementing different type of healthcare projects, mainly focusing on maternal and child health, and also working with doctors who basically provide healthcare to these populations in different regions of Armenia. First of all, I want to say that this opportunity that was given to me after 2015 when I came here to study in Columbia, it was a magnificent opportunity because when you get into this institution, you completely realize that the environment of education is completely different from Armenia. You are able, as my friends already said, you are able to express yourself, you're able to challenge your professors, you have critical thinking which lacks in Yerevan State Medical University. Specifically, you are taught something and you're supposed to accept that without challenging your senior doctors or something like that. That's a big problem. In the recent 2 years, Armenia had two challenging law proposals. One of them was 2 years ago about fortification of folic acid, and one of them was just a few months ago about human papillomavirus vaccine introduction to young girls. And both of them were challenged by doctors and public. And what I saw as someone who sees as a bystander, but I got involved in it afterwards, was the lack of up-to-date education by doctors and misinformation that they were distributing among the public, which was a very serious issue. Last year, within the framework of the AT project, we developed this booklet which focuses on, it's a toolkit basically for fathers, for to-be fathers, for future fathers, for those who experience fatherhood for the first time. And it covers a very general issue, starting from what happens during pregnancy, how they should take care of their wife, and it goes to passive smoking, which is another challenging issue in Armenia right now. It covers the basic nutritional needs of pregnant women, and it finishes up with stress, and somehow we try to touch upon domestic violence, but not so much because that's another sensitive issue in Armenia. And finally, it finishes up with what should be done, what are the urgent cares that is needed for a pregnant woman if they experience any kind of complications during pregnancy. So we with the help of Luis, we printed these booklets, and we piloted this program in Gargar village among future fathers and some fathers who just had their children. And also we are kind of talking with Luis to see the possibilities of implementing capacity building among healthcare providers by bringing telemedicine to these rural areas. So that's another kind of issue which is which needs attention, and we are kind of trying to understand what is the feasibility of such programs.
So the telemedicine is actually to the point that I was making earlier, is making it accessible for people who don't have regular access to healthcare to get care.
I think telemedicine and such programs which will focus on capacity building among healthcare provider and human resources in health are promising programs that can build the capacities of doctors. Doctors can talk together with their foreign colleagues in different countries, in different institutions, and get up-to-date information, do case consultation.
So Jacqueline, we're sitting here,
yes.
and all the time I'm wondering what you must be feeling. I mean, this is just a small slice of the success that organization presents. We only have 3 participants here. You said 500 plus has already participated, so that's a much larger number. But around this table alone, I mean, we already see seismic change in all the fields. I want to ask you about the organization itself. Since we spoke last time, what has changed? What has changed in terms of its philosophy, approach? What kind of lessons have been learned? Just give us some sense of progression for the organization.
Thank you for this question. I'm going to try and summarize the growth that Luis has gone through the past 8 years. And it has augmented considerably the number of programs that are offered. As we are working with our scholars and getting to know them on a one-to-one basis and to get to know their strengths, not only a lot of them are ready to invest their work and support to pass on their knowledge and to seed changes. From the experience of intense work with communities, with people, with youth, with experts in Armenia during the summer, a lot of them have developed also learning units that they shape in Armenian language and that are offered online. And they are offered to whoever wants to join this community of learners around this new expertise, so that we keep the thread of interest and curiosity in our young scholars in Armenia and new experts who want to keep a foot in what they're doing and have also very good access to the latest thinking in their field and in what's happening in centers of excellence. Now, what we did in the field of business, tested it also in medicine, very much with our young lawyers, introducing what is intellectual property and how to protect your ideas, how to bring them to market, and also in the arts, and Ofsana is here. So maybe I'll invite Ofsana to tell us the learning unit that she created, developed and run online with young people in Armenia.
Last year when I was about to go back to Armenia for my to participate in Develop Armenia program, we were trying to understand how I can incorporate my knowledge in this big pool of knowledge sharing. So we came up with this amazing idea to develop the media literacy unit, and within the media literacy unit I designed a webinar for which was called 3Act Structure, Basis of Screenwriting. I could see like how the Armenian filmmaking lacks in knowledge of screenwriting, how they should be written, characters, dialogue, character arcs. I came up with the idea to do the 3Act structure, and we announced it. We had a very big turnaround of people. I designed this workshop for them, which was heavily based on my education at Columbia and my screenwriting classes.
So listening to all of you, there's one specific feature that just keeps popping up, is that, yeah, you are here in the United States, in Columbia University, but what do you do actually has a ripple effect to motherland. The example that you just brought was a great example of doing a webinar and teaching kids there in Armenia or adults. about screenwriting, right? Because you have access here. You can pass that knowledge, which is incredible. And we were just speaking about your theater production of Hamlet, which I understand is a very novel way of telling story. And I understand that because of you, we have a young Armenian actor discovered. So maybe you can share with us that.
Last summer, during the DAT, we were thinking about doing a big-scale production, but then when we understood that we don't have the means to have a quality work that will become an example for the young generations, I understood that rather we work with one actor on a solo performance and show a quality. And I work with Narek Baldasaryan, who is an amazing talent. But he had never been spotlighted as he was in this production as a leading actor who presents like at the same time 5 different characters in one production. We had the production at Yerevan, in Yerevan, and then afterwards we went to Vanadzor, where we had the performance come together for so many people who were just waiting for such an occasion to go and to see a classic work in a new modern interpretation. So we had that there, after which Narek presented this to Armonov Plus International Festival in October 2017, and 2018, basically a week ago, he presented this to Armonov International Festival, and last Friday or Saturday at Armenian National Theatre Awards, he won the Best Young Actor nomination with Hamlet Machine performance that we directed there. And then we learned recently also that that performance is in the official selection of United Solo Festival at 42nd Street District in New York at Row Theatre, that will be presented on October 24th, 2018. So if you were around, please come over and see that production. And that production has also been selected by the Golden Gates Festival in Moscow.
I mean, I'm speechless. What can I say? It's inspiring to see these youngsters here speaking with this incredible confidence, optimism, passion, as you said. You must be feeling amazing. I mean, this is direct result of your effort and your work.
Not just me. I would say let's give credit also to our supporters in the country.
That's right.
To our founder, Mr. President, and all of the people. Always, wherever we show up, they always are ready to work with us. You may have heard that recently we made some changes in the LUIS regulations. When LUIS started, we were maybe 2 or 3 organizations supporting new learning and new approaches, but now there are over 35 different organizations. And from our LUIS scholars, there are about 34 new startups. And what's interesting is the startups are based in Armenia, but working with a world market and looking at the world as their platform. And they very comfortably create branches of their companies now in other countries. So a lot actually have been created with now the mother company being in Armenia and the branch being in California or in New York. So it's really this idea of Armenians designing, not with only 3 million Armenians in Armenia, but 10 or 12 million that we are all around the world. And so because of how active now the field is in Armenia, we are requiring our LUIS scholars, when they receive a scholarship from this year on, they will have to invest 3 years of their professional work after graduating from their education in Armenia. Because now the field is there to welcome their initiative. When it was so scarce at the beginning when LUIS started, we didn't want to retain somebody in a field where there was no no possibilities yet to make their new knowledge work. But now pretty much in every field there are already a lot of invested institutions, organizations, companies who really have a huge need for new talent. We don't seem to produce enough LUI scholars. Before they finish their education, the proposals are already coming their way to work in Armenia. None of them are left without work or a proposition to do something interesting. And we have about 800 mentees every year who are coached by their elder. And those who are in their final years of high school and apply to college, we have a 90% success rate for them being accepted in top universities.
On that optimistic note,
yes,
I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on our show. And most importantly, best of luck to three of you in your creative endeavors. And I hope to see you guys soon again. And Jacqueline, always a pleasure seeing you.
A pleasure is very much mine as well. Thank you.